Hi guys! In this video, I will be sharing all the tips I've used to go from completely bombing my tests in high school to acing all my exams in college while cutting my study time in half. And this is lazy addition, so if you don't like studying like me and would rather be spending your time on doing other things, then these tips, super easy habits you can implement into your life. If you're someone who studies long hours and still doesn't do good on the exams, then these tips may help you. So let's get on to the tips. The first tip is to have clear goals. This is something super easy you can do in just a matter of seconds. Just before you're about to do your homework or study, take a few moments to write down everything you need to get done. That could be, I have to do 1 through 20 of these math problems, or I have to study this section, or I have to read this article and answer questions on it. Having clear study goals helps me make the most of my study time, so whenever I actually have to sit down and study, I'm not spending all this time trying to figure out what I need to do. I already know what I need to do and I can start working on it. My next tip is to go to class and sit in the front. This is super easy to do and it's so helpful. Whenever you sit in the front of the class, you're more likely to focus and less likely to get distracted and go on your phone or do something else on your laptop. You'll probably take better notes, and whenever you sit in the front, the professor will probably start to notice you and recognize your face, especially when you take classes in big lecture halls where there's probably 100 and plus students. You become more of a number and the professor doesn't really know who you are if you're sitting in the middle or the back. But if you're sitting in the front, whenever you need to ask the professor for help or maybe to raise your grade, they're more willing to help you. I remember when I was in my Korean class last semester, I ended that semester with an 89. And I emailed the professor. I asked if I could submit some assignments late to see if I can bring my grade up. And when I emailed her, she just brought my grade up. I never even had to do those assignments. And that's probably because I sat in the front of every single one of her lectures. Also, when you sit in the front of the class, you can make friends with students who are probably doing well in the class, which leads me to my next tip. The next tip is to make friends with people who are smarter than you in that class. And since you're already sitting in the front, why not just make friends with the people who are sitting next to you? It can just be a simple introduction like, hi, my name is blah blah blah, what's your name? My major is this, what's your name? Would you like to exchange numbers? And bam, you have their number. The students who are sitting in the front of the class are probably doing well in that class. They're probably focusing on the lecture materials, they're probably taking good notes, they're probably doing good on the exams. This is just good. So whenever you miss class or you have a question or you need help or you want to study with someone for the exam or quizzes, you can just text them. I remember when I was taking my Korean class, I was sitting next to a girl who was fluent in Korean, and it really did help me so much. Whenever I didn't understand something, I would ask her, and I probably wouldn't have done as good in that class if she wasn't there. So just talk to the people around you. All they can do is help. My next tip is also really easy. It's just to figure out when and where you're most productive. So are you most productive at a library or at a cafe or by yourself in your room at your desk? Or are you most productive in the morning or in the afternoon or in the evening? Just figuring that out will really help you study and be more productive. Finding out when you're most productive is really gonna help you and save so much time, because whenever you do work, it'll be faster and more efficient. If you don't know yet when and where you're most productive, when you're going throughout your day, just try to think, how do I feel right now? Do I feel like doing work? Am I motivated? Do I do my best work now or later? Also, you can study and do work in different locations to see where you're the most comfortable and where you feel like you do your best work. And once you find out when and where you're most productive, then I would recommend doing a lot of your work there, because it'll save you so much time and so much energy. My next tip is to review the material before lectures. Now this is something that's really easy. There's a lot of misconception around this, that whenever you review the material before lecture, you have to spend a lot of time highlighting or trying to understand the material, but that's not really what you need to do. If you arrive to class a couple minutes early, instead of scrolling on your phone, you can just pull up the lecture materials and take a quick glance or skim through the lecture slides or readings and just become familiar with the terms that are going to be said in the lecture. So when you are in class and when the teacher is giving the lecture, you'll already be familiar with these terms. So whenever you're trying to understand these ideas or concepts, they'll be easier for you because you've already been exposed. And so it's good because when you walk out of class, you already have a pretty good understanding of these topics. So you'll end up having to study the material less anyway for the exams, and then you do better on the exams. So it's just like a win-win all around, and it's super easy. My next tip is to know the format of the exam. Also super easy. I know every time I take a class and I take an exam for the first time, usually I do the worst on that exam because I don't really know what to expect. But then after the first exam, I'll already know the format and kind of the types of questions that will be asked. So whenever I prepare, I can tailor my preparations to the types of questions that I know will be asked. Different exam formats kind of require you to take different approaches when you study. So just knowing the exam format can really boost your exam grade. This is related to my last tip. Take the exam prep material that the professor releases seriously. Then you'll actually know what contact areas to focus your study towards. And when you know how the questions are asked, you know how to better prepare. A lot of teachers and professors, they'll release mock exams for you to do. And usually those mock exams are really similar to the exam, so I would take those really seriously. So not only will you be saving time studying because you'll actually be studying material that you know will be on the exam, but your study time will also be more efficient because you're studying relevant topics from the exam. So if you really want to up your grade, then I would recommend doing that. The next tip is if you're confused, get help. And this may sound like common sense, but a lot of people just don't do it because they're just lazy, or they'll think, oh, I'll get it down the line. Don't let it go. It's easy to let it go. If you don't have a good understanding of the previous lesson, you'll do even worse in the lessons that are later to come. I know it may be annoying, or it might be something that seems like out of your way to go and ask for help. Once you make it a habit, it becomes a lot easier. Simply sending your professor an email or asking a friend a question or asking your TA really goes a long way and will really help you. And even if you don't want to ask any of these people, you can always just search it up on the internet. The next tip, also super easy, is don't study and rest in the same place. I don't like doing schoolwork in my dorm because that's the place where I want to rest and relax. There was a point in time where I did all my work in my dorm and I was just constantly exhausted because when I went out, I was doing work, and then when I also came home, I would also be doing work. When I decided to stop working in my dorm, not only did I feel better day to day, but I was also more productive and more efficient when I did study, which also helped me cut down my study time. If you constantly feel exhausted, maybe that might be the problem. My next tip is when you're studying, don't have distractions. I know this might seem like common sense and that everyone always tells you don't have distractions, but a lot of people don't actually follow that. But when you do study, don't try to have a lot of things on your desk that might distract you. And also when you study, put your phone away or silence your phone. If you want to play music, play it on your laptop. Don't make excuses. I promise you, if you do your work without any distractions, you'll be so much more productive. It might not seem like it if you pick your phone up for a couple of seconds, but that really ruins your concentration. And whenever your concentration is ruined, then it'll take you longer to do your work and you won't retain the information as well. My next tip is don't multitask. You might think you're getting things done quicker by multitasking, but that's not really true. Yes, in the short run, that might work, but in the long run, that's not really useful. Studies have actually shown that we as creatures aren't meant for multitasking. You'll end up having to spend more time and effort when studying for your exams because you didn't really retain and understand the information when you were multitasking. If you're used to multitasking, like doing your work while having a movie on the side, or having your screen split, or working on multiple things at the same time, this might be a hard habit to break. But once you do stop multitasking and actually focusing on one thing at a time, really does make a big difference when you are studying, and you'll find that you'll actually remember and understand and retain the information much better. Finally, the last tip, but in my opinion the most important tip, is to take care of your health. This is so important. If you don't take care of your health, then it'll really make doing work and studying so much harder than it needs to be. If you're constantly sleep deprived, if you're constantly hungry or malnourished, then it really is going to make studying and doing work so much harder. You'll end up having to spend more time studying because your brain just isn't working right, or it just doesn't want to be working because it's focusing on trying to survive. So just eating right, getting all your nutrients, taking your vitamins, going and exercising, meeting with friends, taking breaks, taking care of your mental health, getting enough sleep really does help you. So then when you're sitting in class, these ideas and concepts will come to you easier. When you go to sit down and study, you'll be able to study faster and more efficiently. Whenever you go take the exams, you'll be able to remember the information and actually be able to apply it better. So just taking care of your health will really make learning and study and doing work so much more efficient. I hope those tips have helped you. For reference, I probably only study like a couple of hours for a test or an exam, and that's because I do these things, and they might not seem like they would help, but they really do go a long way. And it's because they make sure when you are in class learning the material, or when you are sitting down and studying, you aren't wasting your time and you're using your time as best you can. So that's really how it led me to cut my study time in half and actually learn the information and go from studying hours for exams that I still failed to literally just studying a couple hours and ending up acing the exams. If you feel like no matter how much you study, you don't do good, then I would really try to do these things and see how it works. I hope these tips will help you guys become an academic weapon. And if you want me to go more in depth on my study strategies, then I can also make another video. Thank you for watching. I love you guys. Mwah!